Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Another shooting in Surrey, and it is the same business that's now being targeted for a third time. We'll talk to former Surrey MLA and now radio host Jinny Sims. Love to hear from you. If you live in Surrey or run a business there, what do you think of these ongoing concerns, and how do you think the community can feel safe? After 12:30, when sports parents behave badly. That is the focus of a new podcast hosted by longtime sports broadcaster Scott Rintoul. He'll join us, and we're asking you, when have you seen a sports parent acting offside? I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Thank you for joining us. We're live on CBC Radio, CBC Television, as well as streaming online. And you can call us now, especially if you live or work in Surrey. We're asking you about these ongoing concerns around shootings and possible extortion cases. And how do you think the community can feel safe when there may be elements of organized crime involved? Our number is 604-669-3733. You can also dial 1-800-825-5950 or just hit pound 690. The numbers again, 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950 or just hit pound 690. You can also send an email to bctoday@cbc.ca. As you have been hearing, another shooting today targeting a Surrey business. It happened at Cap's Café at around 4 o'clock this morning. If you're watching us on TV or online, we're showing you the scene at the cafe this morning right now, and you can see the windows that have been shattered there. This is now the third time since July that Cap's Café has been shot at. The owner is Indian star and comedian Kapil Sharma. Now, there have been ongoing concerns in Surrey about extortion threats and related shootings. The Surrey Police Service has not confirmed whether today's incident is connected to extortion, but says it does hold earmarks of it. So far this year, police say there have been 65 reported extortion-related cases and 35 connected shootings. Here's SPS spokesperson Ian McDonald.
When police respond to incidents, there is going to be fear. But what we have to understand is that fear is the currency that's being used by the extortionists. And the way through this is to use many of the mechanisms that have been put into place. So we have an extortion tip line. There's been an extortion fund created by the City of Surrey to help police in terms of arrests and prosecution with sort of an informant or somebody that's willing to work with police to advance those investigations. We have our non-emergency line. We have done many appeals to the community for information.
And we are taking your calls on this. What do you think of these ongoing concerns in Surrey? And how do you think the community can feel safe? Our numbers again are 604-669-3733. 604-669-3733 or 1-800-825-5950 or just hit pound 690. We also, we're taking your emails to bctoday@cbc.ca and watching your comments on TikTok. Now, last month, shots were fired at a Surrey radio station. No one was inside the building when it happened. Jinny Sims is a host with Swift 1200 AM and a former NDP MLA for Surrey-Panorama. She's been good enough to join us this afternoon. Thank you so much. Good afternoon to you.
Really good to be with you.
How did you come to learn of this morning's shooting at Cap's Café?
I got a phone call around 6:15 this morning. I was driving to the office. I was quite close to the office. And my co-host phoned to say to me, I've heard there's been a shooting at Kapil Café. He saw it on social media. And he said, I'll be late coming in, so you start the show. And he went to check and he came back and said, yes, it's true. Because sometimes you don't just want to go with what you see on social media because of misinformation getting out there. So we wanted to verify before we broke the news at 7 a.m. this morning.
What went through your mind when your co-host first called you then?
Not again. Not a surprise, but that kind of a resolute acceptance and think not again. This is the third time at the same building. There's a police cruiser parked there. There's a truck there. Highly surveillance, high quality surveillance cameras all around. It's a very busy street. It's one of the major thoroughfares in Surrey. It's between Delta and Surrey Scott Road, or 120th. And that, the audacity or the, sticking up a finger at the police for this group or whoever it is to go out and take a shot, not just once, multiple shots at the same building that they have targeted. This will be the third time.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time, as you said. When I hear that only about 10 days ago, when I met with the police chief, and we were on the air together, and he told us they had 48 cases. And now, within the last week, we have built up to 65.
That's right.
Which is what I heard Ian MacDonald say. And that is very, very worrisome. And it's the frequency and the intensity. And as you know, on Sunday, a house, a residential place was shot at, and a young woman was critically injured. She is now seriously injured, but at that time, for the first few days, she was in critical condition.
Yes, on the weekend, Surrey Police Service said the victim, a woman in her mid-20s, was struck by a bullet while she was sleeping in her home. And this is the...
Can you just think about that for a moment? So where can you feel safe? Not at your place of work, because businesses are being targeted, and you're not safe in your own home. And so this is a chilling factor. This is extraordinary, catastrophic, I would say, the number of shootings in such a short time and the kind of targeting that is being done. And I think it requires extraordinary measures.
What are those extraordinary measures? What do you think is needed then?
I think if additional policing is needed, it needs to be found from wherever, from the RCMP or other agencies, to bring them in. Because what's surprising to me is, with all the technology we have, that these shooters are not sneaking around to shoot. They stay there long enough to make a video. They are going back to places they've already shot at. They know are under high surveillance. Our streets have cameras on them. People who drive by have cameras, residences, businesses. Couples Cafe is not in a quiet corner. Denny's is right across the road. And there are other businesses. There's a childcare centre right across the road.
Can imagine how they're feeling.
Used to be my MP office.
Right. Ginny, can I just jump in here? Police have said they've set up these measures. There's a new task force set up by the province. What we're hearing from Ian MacDonald at Surrey Police Service and others is that it's also about the fear that's in the community. I just want you to hear from one of the neighbors. In fact, our reporter went out to the site, and many businesses were too afraid to speak. I did hear, though, from Indira Radhari, who's a secretary at the nearby Bulleh Shah Academy.
Our people who comes here, they are scared. They are scared to stand outside, to wait. Mostly our businesses are affected by this. Less people start coming, and it's really, we all scared. Anytime anything can happen.
So how do you address the fear in the community, Jinny, and understandably that fear affecting the propensity for speaking to police or reporting?
I think people's fear is only going to be relieved when they see some arrests, they see charges, and they see convictions. Right now, there have been very, very few arrests, as you know, related to the recent round of shootings. And so people are feeling as if not enough is being done to keep them safe. And yes, I hear this every day. People phone me, they send me text messages, I talk to them in the community. They are scared. And businesses are scared. They want to keep their heads low at this moment, because who knows who is going to be next. And the cases going up from 50 to 64 within, I would say, 7 days should give us all cause of concern.
And Ian McDonald said actually that number is based on yesterday and does not count today's shooting because they have not confirmed whether it is related. He said it does have the hallmarks of an extortion-related case, but that still has not gone through the investigative process and is still undergoing that. My guest is Jinny Sims, former MLA, NDP MLA for Surrey-Panorama, and now a radio host with 1200 Swift AM. And that station, in fact, was shot at last month as well. Nobody was there when it happened. We're asking you, amid these ongoing concerns around extortion and shootings related to extortion in Surrey, especially if you live or work in Surrey, we'd like to hear from you. What are your thoughts, your concerns about it, and how do you think the community can feel safe? Our numbers again, 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. And we are on the line now. We have Brian in Surrey. Hi, Brian. Welcome to the show. Yeah, what goes through your mind hearing about this? What are your thoughts?
Pretty uneasy feeling. I feel like I'm living in a war zone, literally. We've had a shooting about a little over 3 weeks ago, and nothing on the news reported about it. And we're pretty sure it's an extortion case, 3 houses down from us. At about 12:30 in the morning, they came back and shot at the house again after the first time. So that's way uneasy feeling. And we also have issues with the fireworks right now at this time of year with Halloween going off, big explosions. So now we're really uneasy, don't know what's what anymore.
Oh, I can understand that, yeah. And did you report it to police or anyone in the neighborhood at that time?
Not at the moment, but the next morning when people started seeing the bullet holes in the house, so I guess that's what the police were there and didn't see nothing and left, and then I guess they came back and shot at the house again. But it's uneasy feeling knowing that, they're not reporting all these extortion shootings.
Right. I can imagine, that unease, for sure.
How we can make our community feel safer, I think more block watch would help. Maybe us, the people, have to start protecting ourselves, and I don't know. And if you get shootings at a business on 128 3 times, I'd think they would be a good idea to put surveillance or a police officer in a cruiser right in front of the business 24/7, 365 days a year, especially after the second one. So now we're worried about them coming back to this house too and doing another shooting. I don't know. Do we have to go over to the neighbors or actually go out there and stand there and help them? Or it's frustrating. Like, do we get angry at the neighbors? Like, it's not their fault. But that's close to my bedroom where I'm sleeping at night, and that bullet could have totally got me in the back and while I'm sleeping in bed. Not a very good feeling. Pretty frustrating right now living in Newton, Surrey.
Wow. I really hear that. I really hear that in your description, Brian. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your calling and sharing that and your thoughts around what could be done as well. That's Brian calling us from Newton in Surrey. Jinny Sims, your thoughts. He really described there, right? The unease, pointing at...
You could feel his pain.
You could feel it.
You could feel his pain. You could feel his empathy for the people, but you could also feel his fear that he could be lying in his bed and could be one of the victims. I think here, lots of people are not pointing fingers at any one group, either the police or the RCMP or the task forces, but people are getting the feeling that there is lots of talk, but they're seeing very little action. And by action, they want to see arrests. But the police have to do their job of gathering evidence and doing all of those things. In the meantime, my big fear is, will people stop reporting if they feel the police isn't really doing anything? Because it comes down to your confidence in your police service, in your protective services. And Are people going to start paying the extortion money, as some have already been doing, as you reported, because they're worried for their families and they are not sure that the police is able to protect them? I've heard this many, many times from people who are getting extortion phone calls. Who is going to keep us safe? Who is going to keep us safe? And that haunts me as well.
What about the role here for the federal government? What we hear from police is that some of this may be related to the Lawrence Bishnoi gang based in India. Some may not be. They're just individuals locally. Lawrence Bishnoi gang has been declared a terror organization. So what do you need to hear from the upper levels of government?
All levels of government and policing need to work together instead of pointing fingers at each other. Don't say that's their responsibility, that's theirs. If more resources are needed from the national level, they should come. And, yes, one gang has been designated a terrorist organization. But the question people say is, the people who are shooting are the people right here in Surrey or in this region. The shootings are happening in Surrey. So we have to catch those people first. And they're not seeing too much movement on that field. And I think that's where the frustration is coming in. And by all means, every level of government should be throwing everything they have at this. And there is a feeling in the community, which many have shared with me, and I raised it at a press conference this morning as well, with the federal government. That is the feeling, because these are South Asian gangsters shooting at South Asian businesses and homes. Is the response more tepid because of that? Would the response be different if this was happening in West Vancouver?
What do you think?
Those are the questions that the community is asking.
Let me just go to Nargis, who's calling us from Coquitlam. Nargis, what are your concerns here?
Hello. I just wanted to tell you that I have seen many of these persons firsthand. I have grown up with them, and the only solution that is really going to target these kinds of things is mental health. I have seen these people. I have lived with them. I know how...
People who may be involved in these kinds of extortion threats?
Yes, exactly. They have mental health issues which are undiagnosed. If they are diagnosed, if they are helped with mental health professionals, I can assure you these problems are eradicated from the society. But having mental health is such a novelty. Mental health help is such a novelty. It's so unavailable. It's so expensive that we are dealing with these problems in the society. If mental health is introduced, even from daycares, from early childhood, all 12 years of schooling, I can assure you these problems would be eradicated. Most of these people have mental health issues. I have seen it firsthand. I have seen very few of them who have had rich families. They have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder or ADHD or many other things. And with just a simple pill, they are cured and have become normal persons in the society. So the solution is not in policing, in killing, or any of these expensive things. The solution is only in mental health help. And if the government can't afford it, we don't need to wait centuries for government to come up with budget. We normal people in the society can contribute to mental health centers. As many as there are liquor stores and coffee shops in the society, there should be mental health centers in the society.
Nargis, I really appreciate hearing from you. Thank you very much. And Jinny Sims, the point there being made that perhaps folks who are recruited, are vulnerable to being drawn into these kinds of activities or organized crime, if that's the case. What are your thoughts there on who may be vulnerable there?
Look, people who are being recruited, there are pressures on them. I don't know. Each case will be unique and different as to why and how they were recruited. Yes, in our society, mental health is a very serious issue. I'm a high school counselor. I deal with lots of people with challenges even now. But for me, what we're facing here is not your typical behaviors of people who are suffering from mental illness. These are the people who are going out with not a pistol, with machine guns, very sophisticated ones, shooting, and not just one shot, multiple shots, videos, and then taking credit for their actions. There is something big going on here, and we need all the different agencies, all the different levels of government to work together and throw everything they've got at this situation.
There are now, there have been 7 people charged in 3 separate extortion-related cases in Surrey. And so that's the latest on that. What about the community? What can be done in terms of helping the community come together? We heard the idea of a block watch. Anything that can be done at the community level there?
I think in the community, lots of, as you said, family talks need to be happening with kids and with family members. I've heard from some seniors who say they don't want to go out anymore. And so those kind of things can be done. And if anybody is getting extortion phone calls, the police's advice, very strong advice, is call the police. Give them all the information you have. And because evidence shows that if you pay, that is not the only time you're going to make a payment. And then on the other hand, I'm hearing from the public, yes, if they come forward and they are the victims, then they need to get a reassurance from the police that they are going to receive protection, not just for the first 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Jinny Sims.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. Jinny Sims is a former MLA for Surrey-Panorama, now a host with 1200 Swift AM. And per the police, the Surrey Police Service non-emergency line, if you have information about that Caps Cafe shooting, 604-599-0502. 604-599-0502. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. And tomorrow on the show, we're going to talk about youth unemployment now and the impact of AI, making it much more competitive. It's not just the other applicants that you're competing with, but also AI. And Yulia Gracheva is a career coach with Flourish Counseling. She says it's become a matter of job seekers positioning themselves to actually be able to work with AI.
Prepping yourself to work with AI is highly important right now. So knowing what AI tools in your field, how to use AI tools there, how to work with them, and how you can be better. How can you, be at the, not just the very basic skills, entry-level skills, but how can you do the next, what's the next step? When AI is doing this repetitive basic tasks, what can you do as a human, at the next level?
Now, Yulia will join us tomorrow, and we are going to delve deeper into that discussion of the role of AI, the impact of AI on young people trying to find work. How do you use it? How do you learn how to work with it? And is it actually affecting your own job hunt? We're going to have some experts with us, online experts, career experts as well. Love to hear from you tomorrow on the show as we discuss AI and youth unemployment. .30 now. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks for joining us. We are live on CBC Radio, CBC Television, live streaming on the website as well, YouTube, TikTok, all the things. Glad to have you with us. And coming up in our next half hour, this is something that is probably present in your life, especially if you are a sports parent. Think about the weekend. Did you see any bad behavior from sports parents? It can happen. It sure can. And we want to talk to you and hear from you about those experiences, what you've seen, and how we can prevent that bad behavior and be good role models for our kids who are playing these sports. Longtime sports broadcaster Scott Rintoul will be my guest and take your calls. Looking forward to that conversation. That's coming up after this CBC News Update with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. Prime Minister Mark Carney says his government will be getting tougher on violent crime. His Justice Minister is expected to introduce legislation in the coming days to make it more difficult for people accused of certain violent crime to be released on bail. Carney says it would be up to the accused to prove to a judge they can be trusted to be released. For the third time this year, a restaurant in Surrey has been the target of a shooting. Kap's Café is owned by a well-known comedian and TV host in India. Surrey police say there were people working inside at the time of the shooting, and it's fortunate no one was hurt. The SPS hasn't confirmed whether it's connected to extortion, but a spokesperson says it appears to be. And the latest forecast for home sales across Canada shows the BC market is still expecting to see a decrease in activity this year. The Canadian Real Estate Association says BC and Ontario will also see a drop in average home prices, resulting in a national projection of a 1.4% price decline. And now the forecast on the north coast. Showers this afternoon with a high of 9. Mainly cloudy in the Peace with strong winds and highs up to 13. In the central interior, including Prince George, showers with a high of 9 degrees. Highs from 10 to 13 with increasing cloudiness in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, increasing cloudiness with a high of 13 as well. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria and the Fraser Valley, mainly cloudy this afternoon with highs around 12. That's your CBC News Update from Vancouver.
Rob, thank you. That's Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Welcome back to BC Today. And here's something that's really cool. If you're a fan of the singer-songwriter Shawn Mendes, well, he had a concert in Vancouver last Sunday. He played Rogers Arena. The name Tia Wood is likely one you will start to remember from here on in. Such a great moment. The emerging Cree and Salish singer came on stage and sang a duet with Shawn Mendes of his 2018 song Youth. And their version blended pop and powwow music. The two voices came together in the chorus, and Wood added her own verse to the song in ode to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Tia Wood spoke to CBC about the experience.
There was like diehard fans of his in the crowd, and just to feel that energy and that love was pretty mind-blowing for me. Whenever I get to say something on a big platform like that, I like to talk about the issues that are happening from the Indigenous community, because they're not talked about enough. And I just kind of talked about where I stand with it, and how sometimes I feel like no matter how much our people are saying and trying to bring this to light, how tiring it can be, because we've been fighting for our voice ever since colonization and stuff. So that's kind of what I was talking about in my verse.
Tia Wood, phenomenal talent. I have seen her perform. And she's so great on stage. What a great talent. And I've been a fan, so this is not new to me. $12:34 now. Thanks for joining us here on BC Today. Well, yeah, the fall sports season is getting into full swing now. So whether it's from the stands or the sidelines or the locker room, parents are involved. Yeah, they can make or break the sports as well for their children when it comes to their experiences. Hockey Quebec actually has a new campaign, and it reminds parents how to behave during youth hockey games.
Come on, la gang! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
Let's go! Away! Hey, Patine! Patine!
Wow! Wow! Hey, calme-toi!
So that clip shows parents in the stands at a hockey game with one parent calmly cheering on the team, another, though, aggressively yelling at parents on the ice. Yeah, that's in Quebec, but I'm sure it's familiar to anyone here in BC too. If you've been to a game, if your kids are in sports, if you grew up playing sports, that is familiar to you. So we want to hear from you. When have you seen sports parents behaving badly? How do you prevent these bad sports parent behaviors? How can we encourage parents to be at their best and be good role models at their kids' games? You can call us now. Love to hear from you. It's 604-669-3733. 604-669-3733 or 1-800-825-5950. You can also just hit pound 690 on your cell phone or leave a comment on email, bctoday@cbc.ca, or on our TikTok Live. Thanks for joining us there. Longtime Vancouver sports personality Scott Rintoul has actually launched a new podcast to help parents be better sports parents, and it is called Better Sports Parents. I am so pleased to welcome Scott to our studio today. Hello.
How are you, Michelle? Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to have you here. Also excited to have this conversation. I have to say, I was quite surprised out of all the sports topics that this is the focus of your podcast. Why did you want to tackle this?
Well, like a lot of people out there, I'm a sports parent. I've got 2 young girls, and I've been someone who's benefited from sports in my life, both physically and mentally. And so I put my kids in sports, hoping they could reap some of the same benefits and have long-term physical activity involved in their lives. We all know what that does for our mental well-being as well. And the youth sports environment that I encounter, and probably a lot of people out there encounter, is a little different than the one that I was in growing up.
Yeah.
And so that's why I decided to launch this podcast.
Yeah, do you think it's different? We look back with such, feeling of nostalgia, and it was all great and rose-colored glasses, and we think it's going to be the same for our kids?
Well, I wouldn't say that I look back at it as all being great, but I do think it is a lot different. And part of the reason I think it's a lot different is that parents are overwhelmed these days, and we're around a lot more. So not only is the cost higher, the time commitment higher, the driving, all of the different elements of it, we also feel this need to be at practice, at every game. And our parents didn't generally parent that way, at least in my generation. Their jobs didn't allow them to. We have a lot more flexibility in our work now.
Yeah.
And some of that is good and some of that is bad. And so that's why I found it to be a lot different.
What have you seen when it comes to your own life?
Well, a lot of things. And one of the things that is easy to spot is what we saw in that commercial and what people may have seen at games.
Definitely.
A parent admonishing a child who's on the playing surface, a parent getting after a referee, maybe having a heated discussion with a coach, or, hopefully we haven't witnessed it, but we've probably all seen videos of fisticuffs at some point being thrown. What's not as easy to spot is some of those smaller behaviors that most of us have. I know I certainly have, that you learn about and you say, is that actually helping my child? And that was part of the big reason for me launching this. It's easy to spot that overt behavior. It's a lot tougher to find those things within ourselves and have that introspection and say, hold on a second. If I'm at my child's game and immediately after, I'm telling them what I thought he or she could have done better, I'm coaching in the car, is that actually helping them, or is that detrimental to what they're supposed to be enjoying?
This is hitting close to home, Scott. I got to say, my son played basketball as well in high school. He's just graduated. But same thing. I'm an enthusiastic parent, shall we say. Definitely into cheering. But you think about what that ride home is like. Is there a need to review the plays or review how the game went?
Generally not, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And if the child brings it up and leads the discussion, that's one thing. If the parent leads the discussion, that, as Ray Ferraro pointed out in a recent episode, a hockey analyst that many people will recognize, he said, well, your parents are telling you to wake up, get dressed, eat your breakfast, do your homework, all of these different things. If now what is supposed to be your leisure activity, your fun, now becomes parental direction as well, it's just layered on top. It's just another thing that gets in there. And that fun is taken away for a lot of kids.
It's interesting too, because you have big names joining you on this podcast, and you yourself being so immersed in the sports world, it's kind of sending a message, isn't it? That this needs to be a priority.
I hope so. And the people that have come on, they've all been very agreeable in doing it because they see some of the same problems. They're parents themselves. And every single one of them who has come on so far, from Alison Forsyth to Cami Granato to Andrea Neal, they've all said the exact same thing. Hey, I've gotten a lot of this wrong. I've done some of the things that we're talking about, but I'm hoping to tell you that I've learned, and here are some of the things you can avoid. And not everything's going to work for every parent. You know this as a parent. I know it as well. What works for your family might not work for mine. But when we get advice from other parents and we get advice from credible people, and every single one of these people, you can't question their credibility in sport.
Not when you're a Hall of Famer.
Exactly, like Cami Granato or Andrea Neal, and there's a bunch of them out there. But when you get advice from them, it's worth at least having a try, or thinking to myself, is that something I'm doing that I didn't even realize might not be helping my child? Quite conversely, might be hurting them.
Loving the honesty here. That we can be honest and also just say we might fall prey to this too. Love to hear from you if you have seen bad sports parenting behavior. If you yourself, you think, oh, maybe I didn't need to say that or say that to the referee. We'd love to hear from you. And what do you think can be done to prevent it? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. My guest is longtime sports broadcaster Scott Rintoul. His new podcast is called Better Sports Parents. Can't get more direct than that. Let's go to Kyle in Victoria. Hi, Kyle. You used to be a referee?
I did. And I just want to say hi to Scott. We actually worked together about 15 years ago at Team 1040. But anyway.
Hey, Kyle.
So, yes. Hey, Scott. So back in the day, I actually grew up playing soccer in Kamloops. I would eventually go to referee. And it's funny, like, you have to take a course, you have to go through these things.
Right.
And aggressive parents is a topic that they teach you in referee school because it is so ubiquitous. I mean, this is many, many years ago going through that, but it's still obviously something that comes up today. And I think if we're not having these conversations with the parents, then it will never correct itself. And as a referee, I mean, typically you're in your teens when you're starting out, having these older adults come at you for what you're, essentially just trying to help their kids have fun, right? We're not talking about super high level sports for most of these referees. We're just talking about kids' activities. And the amount of vitriol that some of these parents would spew at these games, like, look back on it, wild that this happened. But I will say, after, all you have to do is eject a parent from their kid's game one time, and the next time they come back, they are a completely changed person. We saw this behavior many times in my short career as a referee.
And so eject a parent, that's a solution, Kyle.
Honestly, that was the quickest path to like a change of behavior in my experience. Again, this is many years ago.
Yeah.
But some people might think that that's a bit much. Obviously you can give them warnings ahead of time, but seeing that, like, and everyone wants the game to continue, right? So all you have to say as a referee, little advice to your referees out there is, hey, I'm not going to continue this game if this person is still here. And you'll be probably not that surprised that a lot of parents will jump on board with that. Hey, bud, your time is up. You've been given warnings. Time to leave. So, and again, this happened with me. Next week, the guy came back at the same game, and it was not an issue whatsoever.
That's, wow, fantastic. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. Sounds like you went on to a great career, though, Kyle, despite those challenges. You hear this all the time, right, with those poor teen refs. Absolutely, you do. And thank you very much for sharing the story there, Kyle. And it's one of the massive obstacles for us filling that pipeline of young referees, which will eventually become the Kyles of tomorrow and hopefully referee sports for a long time. Everybody has their children in sports and wants the game to be administered impartially. And that's what referees are there. But they have such an emotional connection to their kids that when they perceive a slight against their team or against their child, that emotion takes over at times. But Kyle's exactly right. You can't run the games without the referees. They're not there because they have any rooting interest. They're giving back to the sport. In fact, teaser or spoiler alert, if you want to call it that, Landon Ferraro, Ray Ferraro's son, will be on the podcast next week. And in the opening,
one of the things he said is that he refereed one game in his life. And he was very excited as a young 12 or 13-year-old to go through referee school and a chance to make a little extra money on the weekend. He was out refereeing 6-year-olds. 2 of them ran into each other, as young hockey players are wont to do.
Sure.
They're learning how to skate.
Yeah.
While one coach is going out to help his player off the ice, the other coach starts berating him. And he said, one of the first things that went through my mind was, I'm not doing this again. Because he was scared. He was intimidated by a grown man yelling at him. And right there, we lost a potential referee. Right in that moment.
What do you think of Kyle's point? Eject the parent from that game.
Absolutely. And as Kyle said, you hope it doesn't escalate to that. But I've seen this where parents may shout something or yell something. And again, it comes from a good place. They want to protect their child in most cases. Some people get a little too competitive. But again, to what end? To what end are we having this type of behavior out there? What is your child in sports for? It's easy to say, but it's very relatable for people to get caught up in the moment. And one of the things Cami Granado suggested on this week's episode was that her and her husband, Ray, they had a buddy system in place. I mean, it was a spouse system for them. But if you're watching the game with another parent, have that conversation before. Hey, if you see me getting a little emotional, if you see me getting a little too invested, just check me.
Yeah.
So that I can calm down and remember why I'm here, which is to support my child, not direct, not tell everybody I know in my network that my kid won 6-4 today.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot because, as you said, parents are overwhelmed. They're doing their best and wanting to be involved. And maybe get pushed, to the line and perhaps cross the line too. Love to hear from you again. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Let's go to Canham Lake, and Carl is joining us now. And you grew up playing sports, Carl?
Yes, and I was just telling my husband, a part of your conversation triggered me. I today still cannot, when I watch sports or play board games, I have incredible anxiety. I had one of those fathers when I played hockey that if there was I always played rep hockey, and I was very good. And but my dad was the type that you could hear on the box, oh no, he's standing up. Oh my God, he's coming around the bench. Oh my God, he was wacko. And you know what? And so good thing Dad and I are friends today, but I feel the impact of those days. But we also live in Penticton, and a few years ago we were at a V's game, and these boys got into a fight, and this parent with 2 kids sitting next to me was screaming, kill him, beat the shit out of him.
Oh
and
my gosh.
These were boys playing, and I was horrified, and I was just just couldn't believe the amount of violence that was coming out of this man's mouth with these 2 kids next to him. So this is a very important topic.
Yeah.
And thank you for triggering me.
I'm sorry that you were triggered. I appreciate your calling in, though. And I'm sorry that you had to grow up with that kind of anxiety. Glad your dad and you are friends now. I do apologize for that strong language as he described what he heard at the game.
And this resonates years later.
Right. And the fact that Carl was prompted to call in because that did resonate so much. It stays with you, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And I hope that many of the listeners and viewers had positive sporting experiences as well. But, having talked to a mental health expert out at UBC who works in the space and privately consults with adult men, he said that you would be very, very surprised how many extremely successful presenting people have the type of trauma still resonating with them that Carl described because of a poor youth sports experience that has stayed with them all of these years. Parents don't think about that in the moment. Coaches don't think about that in the moment. But this is supposed to be the broader side of why we have our children playing sports, for positive life lessons, but it can certainly go the other way.
Yeah. I love your idea of having a buddy system. What are some other bits of advice that you've come across from your conversations?
Well, there's a bunch of them. I'll pick out one that both Allison Forsyth, the Olympic skier, and Ray Ferraro pointed out, and it was not be at all of your children's practices. And there'll be pushback. And again, something may work for somebody's family that doesn't work for yours. But one of the reasons that that advice is given is that you can't have that car coaching conversation after, because you didn't see what your child did on the soccer pitch or on the ice. You have to actually be curious or have them bring it up. Take some time for yourself. Don't overanalyze or over scrutinize and feel that need to coach if you're not at every single practice.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think a lot of people invest themselves in because they want to see their kids and they want to hold on to those precious moments of childhood. But think of what comes on the other side, that pressure of always looking over your shoulder. Is mom looking? Is dad looking? Yeah. Did they see what I did wrong? There can be a pressure added to the child in that situation.
And maybe that gives a little bit of permission for parents to say, for parents who feel they have to be at every practice, and that's part of good parenting. Maybe, you know what? Not necessarily so.
And as Allison points out, because she obviously went through a very highly public sexual abuse scandal, you want to ensure your children are in a safe environment. But once you've done that, she said you have to trust your kids and you have to trust their coaches and take a little time for yourself as well in those situations.
There you go. Okay. From the words straight from Scott Rintoul, who knows sports, a thing or two about sports. So I'll take that advice, certainly. Let's take some more calls here. Laura on the line now from Comox. And you are a sports parent yourself as well, or did you play sports as well, Laura?
Hi, it's Laura Lee.
Laura Lee,
no,
okay.
My son was involved with sports. So this is 25 years ago. It was hockey in the U12. And there was a woman pounding on the plexiglass saying, "Kill him."
Oh, gosh.
And not directed at any, I don't know who she was directing it at. And I don't know, the kids probably didn't hear because they're absorbed. But I'll tell you, I encouraged him to get into basketball when he had to make a choice when he was 12.
Did that make a difference?
It was way more civilized. The parents all were very nice and supportive of all the other kids. And yeah, I don't know. This is Prince George. Maybe it was the hockey thing there. I really don't know. But I'm not a sports fan in general anyway. I was a fan of my kid.
Yeah.
and he,
Laura, I'm going to raise that with Scott here. Thank you very much. I wonder, is hockey, is there something particular to hockey because there is a chance you can play in the NHL? Is that part of it? Or?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, it's the biggest sport in Canada.
Yeah.
And it's the one that many Canadian children get involved with simply because of the tradition and the pride that many Canadians have for our hockey prowess. So that's a part of it. But there is something to it. And I don't want to suggest for a second that all hockey parents are bad. There are so many good ones. Unfortunately, we hear about the bad ones.
Sure.
And hopefully we can weed some of those out, or at least change their behavior. But Alison Forsyth mentioned this in the debut episode. She said that there are many parents who say to her when they may be yelling something at a referee or directing their child on the ice, that's just part of the hockey culture. Alison is one of the foremost experts in this country on safe sport. And what she has said is that the yelling in the stands, the abuse that can be hurled from that environment, that ends up leading to bigger things for the players and coaches on the ice. It heightens the tension in the environment, and it often leads to an elevation of harm. Think about that the next time you want to tell the referee that he or she got the call wrong.
That culture, we all contribute to it. Anyone who's present there. We have an email here from Kathy who writes, as a support worker in a high school, students would share with me how parents scared them when they were on the ice trying to be a ref with younger children. Parents took the joy out of the experience, as we just heard. Think about that, right? If you're a parent, taking the joy out of the experience. Oh my goodness, my heart is just breaking right now. Let's take some more calls here and asking you as well, when have you seen bad sports parent behavior? And what do you think can be done to prevent it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Change that behavior. And how can we check ourselves as well as parents? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. I want to hear from Natasha in Cowichan right now in the Cowichan Valley. Hi, Natasha.
Hi there.
Thanks so much.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can. And you have a young daughter, do you?
I do. And I recognize I have absolutely done some of these things. I fully own it, and I really appreciate I really appreciate that you're taking on this subject. And my question is recognizing how much I own of the situation. But what happens when the coach instigates the negative behavior and then I buy in, right? I participated 100%. But I've now been completely shut out. Nobody will listen to sort of like my side of it and has not even been willing to meet and only responds via email, so on and so forth. And now I don't know how to get back in because I have offered and want to own my piece, but I also want to engage in a restoration process where there's apologies and a commitment to work forward because my kiddo loves her sport. And I want to support her the best way I can, which also means supporting the team and supporting her coaches.
Yeah. I hear your passion, Natasha. So it sounds like there's a very specific dispute between you and the coach. How do we, have you looked at that and how to approach that?
It's a great question. And thank you for sharing, Natasha, and for owning the behavior that obviously has resulted in where you find yourself today. It's one of the areas that's been identified. And I don't have a perfect solution because things will work for different people. But the gap between coaches and parents seems to be growing. And we have to bridge that gap because parents are the biggest stakeholder in all of this. There are more parents than children overall, okay? So parents are a big part of the solution here. If coaches shut parents out, or if parents go behind the coach's back and talk about, well, this person doesn't know what they're doing, all we do is widen that gap. If we don't bridge that gap and have proper communication, I'm a believer that communication is the answer to all of this. And if we don't have that, I have no idea how we get from point A to point B and how Natasha, who wants a better future for herself and her child, gets back into the situation and helps restore a better environment.
Yeah, as you said, everybody plays a part in that culture, and communication between parties is really important. Scott, I have so enjoyed this conversation. Oh my goodness, and I'll be listening to your future podcast episodes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Michelle.
Real pleasure. Scott Rintoul, you know him, longtime Vancouver sports personality. His new podcast is called Better Sports Parents. Love to hear your emails on this. I know I can see a lot right now. Keep them coming. BC Today at cbc.ca.